Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's FPV podcast. This week, we're traversing to the other side again. We're going to be talking a little bit about wings and also a little bit about video games because the person we have on dabbles in both, which is pretty cool. Elvin, say hello first.
Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are getting all your flight time in. So winter is starting to show its nasty head around here. But up here in the Northwest, things is on fire and smoking everywhere, man. I'm telling you. So get out there and enjoy the time. And everybody that's been affected by hurricanes and fires, we pray for you and we hope that things get better. If not, keep on pushing on, man. That's all we can do.
That's right. If you have a chance to give, definitely give. But this is about FPV. So, David,
Right.
please introduce yourself. I got nothing.
I caught
That's
them all
great.
off guard.
How you doing? My name's David Whiddon. I'm one half of TBRC Wings,
Ooh.
but I also make video games as my day job.
That's right. So he's done really cool stuff. He gets to fly and he gets to make video games. I think that's a
Yeah.
pretty good life. Now, you're in Canada, right, David?
Yeah, I'm up in Montreal.
In Montreal. So tell us a little bit about your background before we get into all the cool stuff.
Well, all my background is the cool stuff.
Oh, I see how it is.
At
Oh,
least he recognized. I mean, at least he's telling the truth. Jeez.
So I'm from Australia,
Right.
but I've been living in
That's a great thing. Ding, check. Yeah, check. That's a good one.
yeah. So I moved to Canada about 5 years ago for my work,
Two checks.
and it was here that I really got hooked into the hobby, and things started taking off, you could say.
that's pretty cool. So from Australia, how did you make it from, like, did your company just said, hey, we need you to move halfway across the world just to go work? Like, how does that work?
I was actually working for another company at the time. I'd made a game and I'd helped out on a movie, and the company I was working for after that, I was working for, but then I got a call up from Ubisoft, Ubisoft here in Montreal, and they basically headhunted me and offered me a job, and they offered to fly me halfway around the world to work for them. So that was a real tough decision.
You know what? There's about 1 billion kids that just heard that and said, like, what? That's my dream to have Ubisoft call you up and say, hey, we want your talent. Come make video games for us. So we kind of let the cat out of the bag. So David works for Ubisoft Montreal. And for those of you who don't know, which is probably like 0 people, they made some pretty cool video games. Tom Clancy, Prince of Persia, Far Cry, which is what he's working on right now, and like Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed.
Yep.
Don't forget that. Don't
Yeah.
forget that.
I got to say, it was truly the most humbling experience I've ever had. It was kind of like, me? Why me? But it was, humbling. It was a wild experience. It was great.
So, like,
Nice.
when they hired you on, did they hire you on as a level, or not a level designer, a level artist?
Yep, that's right.
So, like, what did you do to, attract the attention of Ubisoft? Did you work on a video game that they just absolutely loved?
Well, I was lucky. I worked on a game called LA Noire, and I was on that for 5 years. And the lead artist on LA Noire, he actually got a job at Ubisoft Montreal. And it turned out they were looking for people, so he said, "Hey, you should hire Dave," and and so they gave me a call. So that was very cool.
So that's a good buddy of yours, then, right?
Oh yeah.
Does he still work there?
No, he doesn't. He's in the UK now.
That's so funny. So basically, he said, "Hey, Dave, come work for us. By the way, you're going to have to move about 6,000 miles in order to work for us."
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I was okay with that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, like,
When
Go ahead.
when one of the biggest companies in your industry gives you a call for that, you kind of say yes.
That is
Yeah,
true.
if Microsoft said, "Hey, come over here," why would you move, right?
Maybe. I get to say maybe. I get to say maybe. I have a pretty cushy job right now. So, but I would not say no immediately. That's for sure. I would definitely listen, just like everybody else would. So, David, tell us what it's like to work for Ubisoft. What's the culture like?
It's great. It's really good fun. They really look after the staff, which is really great and refreshing. Like with events and stuff like that. I'm super excited to be working on the games that we work on. Like every game I've released so far, I've been thoroughly proud of. Like it's in terms of the fans' reactions, the sales, the fun I have when I play them. I play the games that we make too, so it's
Nice.
to me that's the key. It's
Yeah,
really good
you
fun.
guys see that guy running around just killing everything. That's him. That's him.
So now when there's a bug in the environment, you know who to go yell at. So no, I'm kidding.
It's probably me. It's probably me.
So like, what games have you worked on in the past?
So I started off with LA Noire,
Mhm.
which was a 1940s detective game set in Los Angeles. After that, I've worked on what was it? The first one released from Ubisoft was Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Mhm.
I worked on Watch Dogs.
Oh.
Worked on Far Cry Primal. Worked on Eagle Flight, which is a virtual reality game where you're an eagle flying through Paris. It's basically an FPV game, actually.
Oh yes, I saw that. Yes, I remember
Yeah,
that.
I've
That was
seen
like an indie type game, right? Or was it
Uh,
kind of a demo game?
No, it was a full proper game. It was actually one of the longest games out there in VR in terms of single player campaign. Like it wasn't just an experience; it was actually a proper game with collectibles and missions and such.
Wow.
That was really good fun. And so that's the last one I've released. But right now I'm working on Far Cry 5, which is very cool.
Hey, I'm sorry, we're gonna be on this for a little while because a lot of those games I really like. So Black Flag, did you design or help design the or the level of like the ships? Because like Black Flag had some amazing like ship, I don't know, environments, action.
Yeah, the ship battles were amazing in Black Flag. No, I had nothing to do with the ships. I worked on Kingston, Jamaica, so just one of the cities that you visit in the game.
Go ahead.
But yeah, that was really fun to play.
It
The ship
is.
battles were awesome. It was
Dude,
great.
that was like eye popping. You could have made a video game on that alone, and people would have bought it.
Well,
That's just my
Ubisoft actually
opinion.
is right now. Ubisoft is working on a game right now.
Oh, that's pretty cool. See, look, were you supposed to say that? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm sure they've already announced it.
I hope so.
If it didn't, you could tell us, and we'll just edit that part out. So tell us what it's like to work on a city. Like, does the level designer just come over to you and says, "This is the city," and then you just start plotting it out, or do you get to have your own creativity and kind of just work with the level designer until you have a fully fleshed out cities? Because in those games, the cities are really vibrant.
So it depends on the game. In LA Noire, we based it on the map.
Mhm.
So the LA we created was pretty much street for street the Los Angeles from the 1940s,
Wow.
which was a mammoth task. It was a huge undertaking. In other games since then, it's a combination of working with the art directors and the level and the designers themselves. So kind of working out where you're wanting the rough streets and kind of everything planned out to go. Like when we did Eagle Flight, we were doing Paris, but we couldn't do the entire Paris because it's just epically big. So we had to do a condensed version. So we had to get just the key parts that we wanted in. So I worked on the Montmartre region, which is kind of the mountain. There's a big church on the top, and so that kind of we had to combine the streets from the real map and still make it fit in with what we had. So
That's
that's quite
pretty
the
cool.
challenge when you're trying to merge a map because nothing's on a grid usually, so nothing really lines up easily.
Have you ever tried to merge the design together and realized nothing fit, and you're like, now what do we do?
That's the challenge,
Every time.
pretty much. Pretty
So,
much.
like, how many people are actually designing like the actual environment and then putting it together for a game like Far Cry? Is it like hundreds of people or tens of people?
Altogether, I think we got a few hundred people on Far Cry 5. I don't know the actual count because we have a lot of people in our studio right now. We have people in a bunch of other studios, like in Toronto, who are also working on parts of the game as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't have the count, but it's quite a big number of people.
That is crazy. So, like, for somebody who, from the outside looking in, what advice would you give them if they're trying to get into the world of video game making?
Find out what you're really interested in and specialize. So when I started, I was doing 3D modeling, but I learned everything. I did particles, I was doing scripting, I was doing so many things, which is great because it allowed me to kind of find out what I'm more excited about and what kind of works for me. So like if you like making vehicles, go make vehicles, make cars, motorbikes, trucks, planes. If you like environments like I do, go make buildings, make bridges, make streets. You might do characters, make adults, kids, aliens, dogs. That would be my suggestion if you're wanting to do it. Specialize, and then just apply for the job that you want. Just go for it.
It can't hurt, right? Just to apply for the job. They can only say no, right?
Yep. And then you keep going until you get the job.
Okay, cool. So, like, if somebody says that this is what they like to do, is there anything special in order to kind of attract the attention of an Ubisoft that you can recommend? Or is it just apply and just hope that, well, besides knowing somebody that works there?
So I got lucky. So I'd already been working in the industry for 5 years. And so that made it a lot easier because once you get your first job, the other jobs generally are a bit easier to get. The first one is the trickiest. I think the best is just to have a killer portfolio. Whether you're trying to be an artist or an animator or a designer, have a portfolio that is just your best work. Like it's better to have 4 pieces that are amazing instead of 8 pieces where 4 of them are kind of all right.
I got you. No, it makes a lot of sense. Pretty cool. Anything else you want to say before we move on? Elvin, you got anything?
No, I don't have any clue about video game making. I just know about playing them, and I'm a Rainbow Six guy. I got the original Rainbow Six guy thing. So this is kind of like in video gaming, but still kind of like riding the side of what I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm interested because I think it's interesting how diverse our FPV is, which it should be. It's open to everyone around the world, all different types, nationalities, religions. It has no real boundaries on whether sex, creed, or wherever you're born at. So I really think that it's just a great example on how to integrate the world into something.
Okay, one last question about video games, and then I'm going to leave it alone. Like, Sims have become really popular. I don't know, a topic, and also just for practice or for people that can't go out and fly quads in general. What do you think of the Sims currently, in terms of, the play and also, the kind of levels that we're seeing in Sims right now?
I think they're fine in terms of they're all doing the same thing of doing a pretty good job of accurately representing the flight experience. Well, nowadays they are. Like about a year ago, they weren't kind of too close, but that's going to improve all the time. It's great seeing the flight controllers in the game basically really mimicking the real ones. In terms of the track designs, actually some of the best track designs I've seen are the ones coming out of Australia. Like the ones I had for the Australian Open that Thomas Bitmata won, which got him to the MultiGP International Open. That was just an awesome track. I was watching the races and it was really well designed. So the guys out there in Australia are really doing a good job.
Have you thought about actually creating a few levels yourself, since you're kind of there?
I haven't done any multi-rotor tracks for the games, but I do design wing tracks for wing events. Like I designed the track for the Flying Circus. I designed the track for Hawaii, but that had to change. NAFPV tracks. I'm currently working on one for a new event coming up soon, which is the FPV Darbage Fest for Thai Derby. That's just working on that wing track. Started on it last night, but it's a bit of a process designing a track because you want it to be challenging and fun at the same time.
Oh, cool. How long does it take for you to actually, start to finish on something like that for a sim?
Well, I'm not going to be doing it on a sim though.
Oh, okay.
No, this is just designing the tracks to then actually I'll make an animation. So the pilots who are coming to attend the event can kind of watch the track and get a feel for what it's going to look like, and then, it helps them when they turn up because then they can build the same track. But no, I haven't actually built any for the Sims.
Oh, okay, I got you.
I haven't used their engines yet, so
pretty cool. Okay.
Hey, while we're talking about Sims, is there a sim that you prefer for wings?
I haven't seen one. I don't know if there's any out there.
Yeah, there's rumors. People keep saying that there's one coming, but it's like one of those things that, like, I got 5 guys that are trying to learn how to fly wings right now, and one of the biggest issues is, it's not like a quad, so like when you take off, with a quad, you can turn around and come back. I mean, these guys have to learn to turn around. You know what I mean? That's a hard thing to learn because one, you get used to tossing it up in the air and it takes off, and you got to keep it flying level, and then all of a sudden now you got to turn around because you've flown probably the farthest you can see, from yourself, and then you go turn around and you go crashing through something or drive it into the pavement or whatever, wherever you're flying. So I think a wing sim would be good for that, for sure.
Now you talking. Go ahead, David.
I think one of the big challenges I had when I started flying FPV, because I was flying airplanes, is that you need to be remembering where everything is, because when you fly past it and you want to turn around it, you don't want to turn into it.
Right.
Because it's going to surprise you and just suddenly appear in your view, and you're too close.
Right.
So that was the hard thing for me, the big mental challenge of trying to be picturing everything in spatially around me as I'm flying past it.
Mm-hmm.
So no, okay, I have gone far enough that I can turn around and get around that tree without getting stuck.
Right. Not that you're going to turn into the tree.
Yeah, turn into the tree. Now, when you're talking about this, Alvin, are you talking about line of sight and FPV or both? Or
well, okay. So most guys, what happens is most guys, and we suggest this. Most guys, you need to learn how to fly a wing line of sight first. That's one of the things that we would like you to do, because there's a moment when you're coming back to you and you're getting ready to land that most guys try to take the goggles off, and go back to line of sight, just to make sure that they're not going to run into something, you know what I mean? Clear the area kind of thing. Check, and I do it from time to time, but usually where I fly at, there's nobody around me for miles. But what it is so you take off and you toss the thing and it goes out, and then you can't turn around. I mean, if they don't turn around, then the flight is over because they done flown to the limit of their visual distance. And the next thing you know, it's like, I done lost it. And it goes driving into wherever. So I think a sim would help for that. Now, it's easy once you get in the air and you put the goggles on. But what happens is a lot of these ships are the same people are building it for the first time, right? So the wing is not balanced properly. It won't fly properly, you know what I mean? Right out of, when they toss it in the air, it doesn't fly level and straight. It rolls over, or it cocks to one side, or it'll tip versus nose straight up and drive itself into the ground. We call that a figure 9. So it happens, and you hate to. I'm just thinking that we got David on here, and David knows some people. Maybe they can get together, make a little wing simulator. Even if it's just simple, it doesn't have to show the wing, for FPV, but it would be great if it did.
Probably real flight. I think that's been one of the old. That's been around for a long time. I think they're up to like 8. What number are they up to now? Do you know?
I think it's it's a Real Flight X.
Real Flight X. Ooh, you're under Roman numerals.
Yeah. X.
Yeah. So that's probably a good one, because that has all different kinds of aircraft, and if you just fly a even a 3D airplane, you fly that just bank and yank. It's pretty much like a wing. So for a beginner, that would kind of be pretty good. One thing I recommend if people are wanting to get into wings is in fact not one of mine. Build a Versa wing, or any of the FT flight test wings. For like $2, you can get the foam for it. You buy some cheap servos. The cheapest, you probably get a multi-rotor motor you can stick on the back. Like, build it as cheaply as possible, fly it and crash it, tape it up, glue it up, fly it again. And after a few flights, you'll have kind of got the taste of it. So then you can go up to building a kind of a a more accurate wing with a proper airfoil and such. But those flight test wings, flight test planes are great. You know,
Just buy a couple of them, you guys. Just want to tell you. I mean, they are foam board, so that, they're not indestructible. They don't take, like the TBRC wings. You drive one of those into the ground. Most of the time, you're gonna pick that up and toss that back in the air.
Yeah.
The flight test things they're great teaching. For me, it's a teaching thing. Like I use them to teach other guys. Like, okay, we built this, but I know what I'm doing. So like, I'm the one that actually gets the ship in the air, and then I hand the radio over to them or do buddy boxing with them, and that usually helps out a lot to get somebody to do buddy boxing. But it's just hard for the average Joe. Look at Paul. He couldn't do it. He said it's too much to rely on for the first time. So like, that's what I'm talking about is if we want to engage more people, we need to come up with something. And I know Real Flight is, to me, Real Flight, FMS, and there's another one out there I can't remember. These are all expensive ones, you know what I mean? Like most of the quad simulators today are like less than $20, and you can hook your existing radio to. And with the sims out today, the bigger ones for wings and aircraft, regular aircraft, are holy crap expensive. Like Real Flight is $199 right out of the bat. And that just straight expensive. Runs the shit out of, run people away,
Yeah, that is kind of nuts.
Yeah. Anyway, but I don't want to stay on this too long.
No, well, I do have something to say about that because when I learned to fly line of sight, I actually learned to fly with a big plane that was like you can literally turn the motor off and it will glide for like 5 minutes. If you were learning to fly line of sight for the first time, would you really want to push them towards a wing or just like a traditional big airplane foamy?
Who, me or David?
Go ahead. Anybody.
Go ahead,
either
David.
of you. David, what would you if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, I want to learn to fly, a foamy line of sight." What would you, push them towards? Are you going to push them towards a wing or are you going to push them more towards like a plane?
I'd recommend a plane, I think generally, because they're a bit more forgiving. Like something like the Bixler or the Strato Surfer from Ready Made RC, like that one's tough as nails. Like it's really good foam, and the blow molded fuselage it can really take a beating. I think that's kind of what you want from a beginner plane, something that can, bounce, and something that can actually be a bit more forgiving in its flight characteristics. Because a wing can, get a bit squirrely. Like if your CG isn't exactly spot on, it can be a nightmare to fly. So for a beginner who might not be as careful in setting it up, it definitely I wouldn't recommend a wing for a beginner. But in saying that, they're not difficult to fly.
No, they're not difficult to fly. I agree on that.
What about you, Alvin? I know you're a wing nut.
I agree in plane. I agree something like a Bixler or something like a Radian, something like Sky Surfer. All of those planes in that category are really they come with a little bit of dehedral in the wing. So, and what that is a little tilt. The wings tilt up a little bit so that the plane is designed to kind of right itself as it flies. And it's not meant to go fast. So, and I think that right there is the most important key. You want to learn to fly something that flies slow.
Yes.
The slower it flies, the less chances of you driving it in the first couple times.
Errors occur a lot slower at slower speeds.
Yeah, so like me, here's a plane that I really would love to bring back. Hobby King has dubbed it and copied it, and they call it the slow stick. It was originally made by GWS. It's a red wing. It's a little, it's a stick and boom kind of plane where it's got a little foam plastic wing, and you'd be surprised how well that thing flies at any time of the day. Any time of the day, if there's a little wind, it flies great. If it's a lot of wind, you put a little bit more weight on it and it still flies great. It's just one of those things that the design was well made. It's just it's not something that catches everybody's eye. You know what I mean? It's one of those planes. Like people see the TBRC wings, they see the right wings, they see all these things. Those things catch your eye. The mini drac, the stratosphere, stratofighter, and all those other planes, they catch your eye. But this thing kind of like it looks boring because it's just meant to fly. You know what I mean? It's not meant to sweep through trees at 80 miles an hour. It's meant to fly. So you can put it up at 10 o'clock at night with a little camera on it and fly around the neighborhood, float, 500-600 feet above the neighborhood and come down and land on your street. It can do that.
So you're saying it is boring then? That's what you're saying.
Well, you need boring. You need predict. It's not really boring. It's predictable. That's the word I would better use for it. And predictability is something that will guarantee you a great flight and a great training session.
Pretty cool. All right, so this kind of leads us into why we're talking about introduction to flying, because David is the co-owner of TBRC. So obviously you guys make wings. So why don't you tell us how TBRC came to be? Obviously you've been working as a video game maker, so why did you decide to, you want to work more?
Well, I can't answer the desire to work more. That's always just something that happens.
Right.
So the other half of TBRC is Anthony Whiddon. He's actually the one who does all the actual hard work of the two of us. He's the one in the workshop actually cutting the wings out and loving your phone before you get it. So we met on an online forum that was called The Basement, and they had the TBRC 60, which was originally a plane that they'd made just for themselves to fly as a bunch of friends. And they stopped cutting it because the guy who was cutting them got sick, because cutting EPP is really toxic. It's really dangerous. There's been a lot of people who've stopped cutting wings because of the fumes. And so anyways, Anthony bought the machine off him and kind of the rights to the TBRC 60, and that's when we made he made the company TBRC Wings. And as at that stage, I contacted him and I was like, "Hey, I've got this idea for a wing. Would you like to work on it?" And he's like, "Sure." And kind of we started working together, working on the software and building it all up from there. Together we worked and we recreated the TBRC 60 and we improved it to make the V2, which is the one that's out now. And that's a big 60-inch wing. And yeah, kind of from there we took it off and we ended up making the Reflex, which is a 38-inch wing, and the Apex, which is just behind me right now, this little guy right here, which is a 700 mil. I think that's like 24 inches. I don't know, 700 mil wing. We got some others in development right now as well, but that's basically how it started. We just worked online together. In fact, we were working together for quite a while before we actually met in person. Just plenty of Skype and Facebook Messenger.
So how did you get into flying? It's like, what's your background in that? Because obviously before you decided to say, hey, I have an idea for a design, you actually had to fly some. So what got you into this hobby?
My first plane was when I was about 18 or 19. I can't actually remember. It was a big, like 1.8 meter sailplane glider, and I buried that in the dirt 30 seconds into its first flight and totaled it.
Everybody.
I snapped the wing off mid-flight. It was heartbreaking. Yes, I've been flying for a while. The flight test ones really helped me kind of fly a lot more often. Like the Bloody Wonder and kind of some of the early ones were really, really great to get me into it. And then FPV took off from there. So that kind of where I was building my own designs, and some worked and many didn't.
Trial and error, man. Trial and error.
Tested. We call that tested.
Trial and lots of error.
Trial and lots of error. So what was your idea? So what brought you over to TBRC and says, hey, I need to try out this? What was the idea that eventually got you into TBRC and, you stayed there and continued to work on?
So it was a design that we actually should be releasing hopefully soon. We're waiting on some machines to show up to finally, because the construction process is tricky, but it's a foldable wing. It's a wing called the Boomer, and it's a 40-inch wing, but can fold to fit up inside a grocery bag.
Oh, like,
and it can go
take apart fold or like just fold?
No, like it folds in a couple of points, and it can go from the bag to the air in about a minute.
Ooh.
Oh,
That's
Elvin's wallet's gonna get a little bit lighter pretty soon. I can see it and hear it right now. It's flying away. Okay, I'm kidding. Keep going.
So that's so we're just waiting on some tooling to arrive, because to make it so that the average person can create the hinge mechanism that I've come up with. It's quite a process. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to build. It's still not going to be easy. It was not difficult. It's just involved.
So this is not a beginner thing. This is
absolutely not.
Okay,
that's what it sounds like to me.
This is the kind of wing that is going to be awesome to take anywhere. You can fit in your backpack. You can go put in your hand luggage on an airplane. You can literally take it anywhere.
It belongs in my fleet, right?
I'm telling you, his wallet's getting lighter every second we talk. It's like it's
that's exactly what he's saying. Yeah.
You know what? Here's the thing,
guys. We need guys that's gonna fly all over the country and take my plane with them everywhere they go. Yep. Ask why. Ask why. Why don't I take every time I leave? I take a wing with me.
Yeah, and it's a big box too. That's the problem. So David, like, you have a really good idea, but you got to make it so that it's usable to the novice, because that's part of the reason why quads are so great, right? Is because you can literally throw them anywhere and they'll survive, and then you can take them out and you crash them anywhere. It's it's great, but like if it's hard to build, then I can't say that would be great for an obviously. But portability is important.
Yeah,
we are doing everything we can to make it as convenient as possible for people. We don't want to make it so only the elite is going to have this aircraft. We want to have it so a few more people can have it.
Yeah, I hate telling people you're just not ready for that. It pisses some people off. You know what I mean? They're like, dude, you're not ready for that. What? And then next week they got it, and then it's broke.
There are some things that you generally don't want to fly. It's the truth. Right. I've seen a lot of crashes out in the field. And some of that stuff, it's a lot of money.
Right.
Yep. Oh yeah.
That one behind me, that's not cheap.
Nothing's
that's
ever
$1,000, baby. When they leave my hand, that's $1,000 floating off in the nowhere.
Yep. And you hope that you've tightened everything before you've taken off, otherwise you lose something, and
then it goes down, and you go hunting, and you hope your GPS works. Now, okay, let's get back on track here.
4 hours later, you just come home shaking your head.
Yeah, that's not good. So TBRC, what is the philosophy of TBRC when you're building your wings? Is there some core fundamentals that kind of make it a TBRC wing?
So the first thing is we want it to fly smooth. That's kind of the main thing, I guess. Also, we generally try to have different flight envelopes designed for each aircraft. For example, the Reflex is a really good all-rounder. Like it's won and podiumed on many races, around the globe. But it also can be built as a cruiser, like to go long range, and kind of has quite a good wide envelope. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of different horses for courses, I guess. Trying to be able to cover everything with all our designs. So like the Apex is designed to be a small plane that you can take anywhere, and can be built with mini quad parts.
Oh yeah.
Whatever mini quad parts you've got, it'll take it.
It'll take it, and it'll work. Do you guys make a spec wing, or is one of yours spec wing approved or whatever?
Not yet. No, that's one of the ones that we're kind of working on at the moment. We've got a couple in the works. We've got the spec wing in the works, and we've got another one called the Villain, which is about to be released actually, and that's a race plane, and It's not going to be designed for beginners, this one at all. This is something that Elvin's going to love.
Man, it's getting lighter, man. That wallet's just starting to float.
Yeah. And so philosophy behind that one is crazy fast, but still an enjoyable experience with being nice and smooth and predictable.
Predictable. See that's that key word right there, baby. I guarantee you guys, you wing guys, if you new ones, it's predictability is very, very assuring. It gives you that opportunity to kind of loosen up a little bit. If you everywhere you point it, it goes, then you know where to point it. You know what I mean? And you just, sometimes it just adds a little bit more power.
Well, it gives you that confidence to go through that gate or go low around that tree. Like if you're doing 125 mile an hour, you don't want a plane that's hunting around the sky. You want one that's locked in.
So, yeah, I can agree to that. Like, I got one that I can fly, 130. It'll hold 130, like 5 feet off the deck, and when I push down a little lower to get down to 3 feet, it does it, and it's not bobbing. One of the issues today with a lot of the stuff that's out there is it's bobbing up and down and twisting from right to left, and it causes an issue when flying. When you're racing, it's not really that big of a big deal because, usually you're flying from 2 or 3 different envelopes of flight, from slow to fast to high turns, high speed turns, or high angle turns, and then back up to high speed. So working your way back up to high speed. So it's kind of the ship kind of got to work for 3 or 4 different flight envelopes, but some ships don't do that.
Yep. So you want to make sure whatever aircraft you're flying is kind of designed to do what you're wanting it to do.
Right.
You want to hold it up.
Okay, so Elvin, talk to me about building a wing that doesn't do that, or is it part of the design? So, like, what is it that makes it bob or wobble? We've all seen it in some videos. So, what's going on there?
Well, what it is for me is like what it looks like is it looks like one wing slows down, and the other wing is speeding up. So it's kind of tracking like this. It's kind of like it starts to hunt from left to right, because what happens is when you're in a high turn and you're turning, one of your wings actually slows down and the other one speeds up. And if the ship hasn't been designed properly to counter that, and there's all different kinds of things to do when they're designing the wing, is called inductance and whether or not the aileron is far enough from the high part of the wing, where the root is, or the high part of the airfoil is. It can cause the plane to not track well while it's flying. And there's a couple of little tricks that they do over time once you start to see that, and I don't have a TBRC wing, so David, what do you guys do to counter some of the? It's probably not a lot of the stuff I've seen so far. I'll say this: it's bad building that has caused most of those wobbles. Somebody didn't put their wing in the bed properly, and they didn't iron it properly, and they got a twist somewhere along that wing. They just don't see it very well. You just can't call the faster you go, the more critical everything is. That I can say that. What do you think, David?
Yeah, so generally there are plenty of times when people have kind of made an error with the hot iron when they're laminating their plane, and they might add a twist, or they might put a flat spot in the wing, which, as you said, is tricky to spot, to realize that that's actually what you've done. Pretty much I've found every wing will have some waggle at some point in its flight envelope.
Right.
Like I can tell you right now, the reflex, it waggles a lot just as it's about to stall. But when you're flying at a decent speed, you're fine. Also, when the wind hits most wings, you're going to get a bit of waggle as it's kind of dealing with the wind, like a
Right.
cross breeze. But yeah, so basically all wings are impervious to it, but all wings also fly. Most wings will fly really, really straight and level in zero wind conditions. Like if
Right.
you're flying in a straight line, most wings should be nice and smooth. One of the things we've got with ours is we have our unique winglet design. You've probably seen the shape. It's kind of like a weird kind of football shape with a bit of a tail on the end, and that's designed to work with the wingtip vortices as they shed off the wingtip.
Yeah.
Kind of minimize that and kind of keep it all running smooth and efficient.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now one question I have for you guys, and this is from a newbie's perspective, is that I've seen plenty of friends starting to buy some I don't know, not inexpensive but affordable wings, right? And the problem that we have here is that the places that we usually fly with deals with a lot of wind gusts. It's not constant wind. It's like you'll be going along great, and then it's all over the place. It's like, and you know, as a new guy that's seeing it, it's like that's a little bit tense, right? Because you'll be going along, and then all of a sudden your wing decides to, you know, hang a right really quickly. Like, what do you do? Is there a way to counter
Keeps you on
that?
your toes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So one thing that'll help is a heavier wing.
Right.
Generally a bigger, heavier aircraft in general, not even just a wing, but a bigger, heavier wing will be able to withstand the wind gusts a lot more.
Yeah.
So like if you get a really small light plane, it's more likely to be tossed around like a kite.
Right.
But you know, like a TBRC 60, you might weigh 4 pounds, 5 pounds, whatever as you're flying it. It's going to be rock solid through, you know, a lot of your wind problems you're having. Although the problem is though that you need more space to fly it.
Right.
That's one of the advantages of mini quads is you can fly in a tiny backyard, but a wing in airplanes in general you need a much bigger space.
Yeah, because you can't back up.
Oh yeah.
Well, then you have a gyro in there to help you smooth everything out in a mini quad. But like
a lot of wing planes, a lot of wings now. I mean, there's some really simple flight stabilization systems out right now. Why?
Yep.
I know a lot of guys, may not fly that brand, but Spectrum has an AR636 receiver that has a stabilization built into it, and it's really, really simple. It works really well. A lot of the guys are running
iNav.
iNav is the one we're working on that right now with a mini drac and iNav, getting things set up right now to go do some testing, because we're gonna eventually hopefully have that guy on the show. But the thing is that so it's iNav and beta flight stabilization. Guys have been doing that for a while. I thought that's what everybody was moving to, was iNav, but I found out a bunch of my guys have been using just beta flight for the wing, and they love it. So because it has all the options. You get the OSD. You can go to that beta flight controller and get everything you need and pump it into the goggles, and they can see, everything.
Nice.
So like go ahead, David.
Go ahead.
You go for it.
No, so like for really windy days, because that's it's August around this time, so wind gusts is just something that's just going to happen
around
because
the corner.
So like there's really no way to counteract that if you just have a fairly light wing, because like most affordable wings, right, they're kind of light. They're not exactly like rock solid in terms of build, right? I mean, they're just like beginner wings. So there's really no way to counteract that. It's just that you're just gonna have to fly through that experience.
I would say a lot of wings today, the cheaper ones, there's EPP wings are designed to take a beating. Most of the EPP wings are not cheap. And the quality ships usually are $75, $80 to $100, for the quality ships. And anything below $100, let's just say anything under $75, is usually designed that if you break it, you buy another one and you start all over, and that's usually how that market is. So I would just say if when it comes to flying in the wind, you need a bigger ship. It's just you don't want to start off tossing a light ship in the air because it's going to be a hell of a party trying to get it back down. That's about it. But look,
although to be honest, sorry to cut you off, the
Right.
Apex handles wind really well.
See,
Just
look.
to give a bit of a plug. But
look at
that
Now,
Open
when
the
you
door for
say
that.
handle wind really well, is it at a certain speed or is it like at cruising speed? Because like, I think Elvin's kind of pointed to this, but the faster you're going, the less if the wind affects it. Is that in general a right statement?
a little bit. The wind's still going to knock you around if it's a big wind gust coming from the side. It's still going to push you. In fact, it could be worse because you're traveling a lot faster and you're carrying more ground. So if it angles you towards a tree, that tree's going to come up a lot faster. So your reaction time needs to be stepped up.
Sure.
But yeah, so all wings just going to handle it differently. That's just all
bigger
aircraft in general.
is going to slower effect. Thinner airfoil is going to get affected a lot faster. That's usually what it is. It's so the thinner the wing is, the more the wind is going to affect it. The thicker the wing is, the less the wind is going to affect it. And then what we do is when you have a wing that is being affected by wind, you put more weight on the CG point, which is called ballast weight, and that helps with we call wind penetration. So you actually, I have a couple of little bars that I tuck inside my battery right over the CG point. Battery bay right over the CG point to increase the weight of the wing, which decreases the way the wind pushes it around. It takes more wind to move the mass. You know what I mean?
Makes sense. So let me get your recommendations on a good wing that can fly in gusty weather. What would it be? That's fairly easy to fly. I'm not saying novice. I'm saying somebody that, has flown and says, you know what, these conditions, they're just going to be this way. I wanted to be able to have a wing that I can fly, but like, it can't be like a 60-inch wing, right? Because like some of us don't have that much area to fly a wing in. So what would your recommendations be? You want to start, Elvin?
No, I'll let David go. Because it's TBRC, baby. It's TBRC. I know he got something.
He's gonna point to that right there.
Like, right. Yeah.
Is that your recommendation?
If it's a really windy area, probably wouldn't recommend that. Like there are better wings out there.
Mm-hmm.
The Reflex does a pretty good job. The Flinch from Ruben had Sweet Wings. I haven't had a chance to try too many, but I think Alex's, his Wyvern does pretty good in the wind too. But I haven't had a chance to fly that, so I can't say that by fact.
All right.
Haven't had a chance to fly all the wings out there yet. So.
Me either, but I'm trying.
Yeah, I know you're trying. You got so many toys over there. What about you, Evan? You got any recommendations?
I would say, like he said, the Flinch. I like the Anubis better for penetration in the wind. The Wyvern is just straight up fast. You know what I mean? So, and I flew that in nationals in Hawaii, and not in the Worlds in Hawaii, but that gives you that the Anubis gives you that penetration punch. You know what I mean? It's got that a little bit wider airfoil, and that's what I like about it. The Hardcore 44 and the 48 I like for wind. Anything else is only bigger because it's so much cooler to fly.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. You go to a flying event, even just watching them, seeing a couple of big 60-inch wings doing laps in formation is just a wild experience.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Yeah.
And I even like when I'm flying my own stuff, and like when I'm coming back I'll leave that last, couple of, 2 or 3 quick runs across the top of it because it sounds so cool hearing my own ship coming in. Ooh, as it getting louder, and then it go, and everyone, what the hell was that? Oh, that's a big baby right there.
Or what about the Rubens Behemoth in Hawaii?
Yeah, that was
He was running on 12S. His prop tips were going supersonic, and he's
Right.
screaming. The screech echoing down the valley was that was special.
Yeah,
Everyone was watching.
that's just incredible. So yeah, there's a couple of wings out there right now. If you're interested in wings out there, get your hands on. There's several different manufacturers out there, but today we're talking to David. So we're gonna say go to TBRC and get one of those wings, and because you're not only keeping the market open, you're also keeping all the options there too.
Pretty cool. So TBRC, what website do you guys run? Just to let us know.
Say that again, please.
What's your website?
www.tbrcwings.com.
tbrcwings.com. Pretty cool. So if you're interested in wings, definitely go over there and check it out. I don't know. I'm the outside looking in when it comes to wings. I already got too many toys. Elvin hasn't convinced me yet to go get a wing yet. So we're going to move on to the next subject before he tries to do it once again. So,
Yes,
David, we met because you were the commentator for Drone Nationals, Drone Worlds, and just recently you were out there at Multi-GP International Open doing the wing commentary. Tell us a little bit about your ventures into this.
Yeah, I've been having fun shouting at airplanes. I started actually just to try to annoy my buddies here in Montreal. So I was out with Ryan Walker and Gab 707 and another mate of ours, Pat, and I'd crashed. We were flying quads and I'd crashed as I usually do, and I started trying to annoy them, getting in their ears, hoping they'd tell me to shut up. Gab's coming down the back straight, Ryan's not too far behind him, basically trying to be annoying.
Right.
And afterwards, Pat said to me, he goes, actually, you're kind of good. Can you do it again? I was like, really? Okay. And so from there, we ran the Montreal Drone Expo like a few months later, I think it was. It was a big flying event here in Montreal. And when I was one of the organizing committee, so I'm like, well, I'm commentating, and just put my hand up and did a 10-hour commentating gig for my first go, which is
that's a long time.
Exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exhausting. But yeah, from there it just kind of went from strength to strength. I did NAFPV, the wing races there. And I went down to New York for nationals, and I'd emailed Joe Scully because he was the one actually being the commentator for the event. And I said, hey, look, if you need a hand, I'll be there because I'll be there with some of our sponsored pilots flying. My mates are flying. New York's pretty close to Montreal, so I wanted to. It's not that far to go down and enjoy some races.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said to Joe, if you need a hand, let me know. I'll be there. And I didn't really hear much back from him, but I'm like, okay, that's fine. Then on the Saturday morning at like 7:00, he comes up to me and hands me the microphone, and he said, "Do you want to do the wing races?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." Wow, okay, crap. Now I'm going to be on ESPN, and
now you're on the spot.
Yeah,
that's a hell of a spot to put somebody on when he was just enjoying himself, and then all of a sudden, here's the microphone.
That was great. Yeah, it was really good fun.
Now,
yeah.
The funny thing is, though, like in the quad world, obviously Joe Scully is known to be the commentator to go to. But when I think of wings, I think of you. So what is it like to actually commentate a wing race? Like, what are you looking for? Because obviously, like, when Joe does it, he likes to do it through the FPV view. So, like, when he actually does it, all he's doing is staring at this monitor with, like, 9 views. And sometimes I wonder how he can do that because, like, trying to process all those moving screens going all at once gives you a headache. Mm-hmm. You like to do it line of sight. Am I correct in this?
Yeah, I've tried watching Joe Scully do it, and I can't understand how he does it either. He's truly a master of what he does in just every part of the commentating. It's a whole nother level. I like staring at the planes. Since a kid, I've always liked watching things that fly. Like, that's always blown my mind. So basically take it to the next level. I just have to track all the objects in the sky and keep an eye on where they are and who's in front. The great thing about wings is they're big, they're loud, they're fast, and they're colorful. So I can easily spot who is who from a couple of 100 meters away. You can usually identify which type of aircraft it is, who's in the lead, what they're flying, and which one's which is the real key. Because quads, you get 50 meters away and you can't see who's who. So that does make it a lot easier. But
True.
there's a lot of pressure because you know that everyone's watching, and a couple of times I've called it wrong and I've killed myself for it. I'm like, damn it, that's I've called that one wrong plane because similar color schemes or something, and I mix it up. But it's really good fun. I have an absolute blast when I'm commentating the races.
Now, me and Elvin, we both have experience commentating because we did that over in Dover. And trust me, I know exactly what you're talking about when you call it wrong because it's pretty easy to do. So what do? It seems like for the most part, I'm kind of serious about this, but most people don't actually realize when you call it wrong. You kind of just move on. The only people that really get angry at you are the pilots when they come over and says you called it wrong. You're like, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. So like I called it wrong.
Yeah.
Yep. Or when you're watching the race back later on, you're like, wow, I can't believe I got that wrong. Like, it's so obvious.
That's usually how we find out.
Yeah.
Like when you commentate, right? What are you looking for? What are the keys that you want to convey to the audience? Is it who's in the lead? Or is it when a pilot, makes a mistake or the passing? Like, what do you key in on?
So I'm looking for, we're trying to make sure everyone knows where the leader is. I figure that's important to know where the lead lap is and kind of when they finish. You don't want to miss that. But also, I'm trying to watch everyone to try to find the little battle that's happening. Like there might be someone who screwed up early on, but is now making a fight through the pack, and is kind of clamoring their way through. And they might be faster than everybody else. So that's the person I'm watching. So I'm calling them as they're catching up to the next person, passing them, catching the next person, passing them. Or if there's a battle between two pilots. I remember there was a couple of battles when I was in West Virginia for the flying circus, and there was like 3 meters between two planes that were kind of passing each other the whole way for quite a few laps, and that was just exciting. So that was something that the whole crowd can get behind, because I figure the idea of a commentator is to, like, the main entertainment is the race. The main entertainment is the quads or the wings. That's what everyone's there to see, but you're there to kind of add a bit of spice to a really good steak, to make it palatable for people, to really bring the race to the crowd, because the crowd may not be all other pilots. There might be loved ones or people off the street, like we had in New York. We had people who were just randomly walking past who would stop and check it out. So I think you need to tailor your commentating for who the audience is. Like if it's all pilots, you might talk a bit differently as if it's all families. But at the end of the day, you're just there to bring the entertainment to people.
No, I think that's a really good answer. It's one of those things where in a lot of events, I bet you when you go to a lot of events, there's not really that many people in the audience. So you're really talking to maybe a lot of pilots. Like, how do you tailor it to just pilots? Do you get more technical, or do you kind of like just be a little bit more loose and a little bit more funny, since most pilots know what's going on already?
If it's just pilots, I tend to insult them a lot more as they're flying.
I like that. Okay, we're gonna have to get Alex on here.
I try to pick on them a little bit because I think it's funny. Because a lot of the wing guys, we're all mates. We see each other always at all different events, and so when you know your mates, you can pick on them a bit more, and it's all fun and games. Or I'm trying to help them out, trying to like even after a race, trying to help them out. Actually explain, mate, if you take this corner this way, it might speed you up. But if it's mainly pilots, it's a bit more technical, a little less fluff, I guess.
Little less fluff. I like that. Okay, so what do you do when there's an audience that you're trying to gather them in, or you're trying to attract people to stop and actually watch this? So what do you tailor towards for that type of environment?
I guess if it's between races, when you're on the microphone, trying to be a bit more inclusive and bring the sport to them, explain them kind of what they're seeing, like what they're expecting to see. Try to explain that there's different types of airplanes, and that they're all similar in that they're all flying wings, but they're all different in terms of, like an Anubis versus a Villain. They're very different aircraft, but
Mhm.
they're technically flying wings. So try to
Right.
bring the technology in the sport to people. Try to make it accessible. It's like if you've never watched baseball, or you've never watched American football or rugby league or whatever sport you've never watched before. The commentators generally do a pretty good job of making it accessible to you.
Mhm.
You might be a sports fan in general, so like you might like racing, but you've never seen quad racing. Someone like Joe Scully does a really good job of bringing that sport to you to be able to digest as a race fan. So that's kind of what I'm just trying for there.
Okay. So here's the part where like I really struggle with, because like there comes to a point where there's really nothing left to say. It's like literally it's like you've racked your brain. It's like there's really nothing except to repeat yourself. Have you gotten to that point where like you have something, to fall back on? Because I'm still struggling with that, because if you're going to do this for like 8 hours, all right, eventually it's like, what else are you going to talk about?
A really good thing to watch is watch cricket commentators for that. These guys have a 5-day game that they have to commentate. And usually they actually cycle out the commentators. The same commentators aren't doing the entire day of
5
cricket.
days, what?
That's a lot of days.
It's amazing. But so for really good practice on that, you watch the guys, and I remember one day they were talking about clocks. It's got nothing to do with cricket. They were talking about clocks. So I think you can talk about anything. Once you've run out of stuff to say, if it's between races, you can really talk about anything. You talk about how you got there, or make sure you mention the sponsors. Give the sponsors a good plug. Tell people to go get lunch at the food truck if there's food. I think there's always something to talk about. Your job is just to be entertaining and keep talking. Just keep filling that air.
All right, Elvin, you got to write this stuff down so that we can be better next time. But like I've done like a few events where I'm the commentator, so it's actually very noticeable when you stop talking, right? Because if you're the only one that's filling air, the second you stop talking and everything goes dead, the event kind of just like kind of deflates a little bit. So you got to be real careful that I feel, David, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that as the commentator, you're kind of controlling the energy. So like it's your job to actually like, you can't stop. Literally, like you could kill an event because you stop talking or something.
Mm-hmm.
One thing they're doing at the Multi GP and National Open is all the tracks had music. Which is, I guess, a good way to fill in dead air if you're not wanting to be talking all the time. Well, you physically can't because you're running around chasing people or whatever. You're kind of marshalling people. You just kind of flick a switch and Bon Jovi's playing or something, and that can keep the energy up. And
no, I do that at my events too. It's actually a very good idea, and it helps out a lot. But it's like, because you're not talking directly to them, some people will just lose interest and just walk away if you do that. It's kind of give or take there. People that are already enjoying themselves, they'll enjoy the music. People that are kind of there to like learn, or it's like, what's keeping me here, sometimes the music won't be it.
yeah you can't just kind of turn music on and come back 3 hours later and hopefully everyone's still ready to race.
Yep, ready to be entertained once again. So it's definitely difficult. Is there
speaking of running around after people, I actually have a question to ask. Elvin,
what?
In Hawaii, you made it to the finals, but you didn't show up on the final day. We were looking for you. We were running around. Where is he? What is happening?
My legs had gave completely out.
Okay.
Like, why came to me and he's like, Al, you ready? I'm like, I'm having problems walking, standing up. That high grass killed me, dude. It just killed me. Like, I know, and thank you for bringing that out, because a lot of people don't know. They like, oh, he didn't do nothing. He wasn't nowhere near. Thank you for saying that. But I was honestly, just done.
No,
I was done.
I
was mentally and physically done by the time we got to the last day, dude. I asked why. I looked at him. I'm like, no, I can't do it. And it was just horrible for my body. I just couldn't take it anymore. I'd already when I got to Hawaii, I did a lot of stuff that I hadn't done in a while, you know. So it was I was already riding on 2 weeks before everybody got there. I was already riding on 2 weeks of walking everywhere, places that I hadn't walked, you know, and since I was a young boy, you know, I went hiking a couple of places. There's a couple. I'll say this: there's a couple spiritual places for me in Hawaii, and you have to hike to get there, you know. And I went hiking and to get my connection back. I came home feeling better about myself and the world, you know. And my wife was really excited about that. That I took that time to go and do that because it helped me later on. But I was just exhausted, dude. I mean, I spent 3 weeks of pretty much walking everywhere I went. You know, I mean, I drove here and there for a little bit, but I was just exhausted, man. I just couldn't take anymore. And you know, I just couldn't take it anymore. That's all it was. You know, if it had been another, you know, if I'd had 2 or 3 days of relaxation and off my ankles and knees, you know, I probably would have did better. But it was just hard on the body. You know, I'm almost 50. I'll be 50 this coming year, and you know, I've done a lot of stuff in my life, and you know, I can tell you, I stretch myself thin on a lot of things just so I can be there at the events when stuff happens.
Don't worry.
But other than that, I thank you.
Yeah. Don't worry, David. After the podcast, I'll make up a good story that you can tell everybody else.
we just cut that out and edit in the you know.
Yeah.
We'll edit in a good story, not tell
drunk last night. You know, you can say some shit.
Surrounded by women, you know.
Oh, don't say that because.
He'd be in total trouble. But I will say this though, like when you go to Hawaii, like it's like a different place, you know, because you're on an island, and the place that we were staying at was right at the coast, and I did not get the greatest of sleep, and even I got like sick towards the end. I don't know. Maybe it was just bad luck, but I know Elvin wasn't sleeping well towards the end anyways. But
yeah,
we actually...
that killed me.
Yeah.
It wasn't a relaxing island vacation for anybody.
Yeah, it's true. But here's the funny thing, though. When I heard about it, I'm not sure if I heard it from you or from Alex, and that... You know, when you heard that he's in, and I turned around and says, "Oh crap, Elvin isn't here." And the funny thing is that the location we're at, half the team had cell coverage, the other half of the team had no cell coverage.
Oh,
so
wow.
half the time we couldn't reach anybody because like the other half of the team had nobody that had cell coverage. So it's like,
yeah, Gerald, even David French called me after. You know, he's "Hey man, what? Well, you missed your call." I'm like, "Oh, really?"
We were looking for you, man. No one knew where you were. No one knew how to contact you. And Anyway, so I just wanted to check.
If the opportunity comes along again, I'll be better prepared for that. But you know, it was just time. It was an overtime exhaustion for me, and you know, for me, it was surreal because at the end I left and I competed with the best pilots on the planet. To me, I mean, when I looked at all the guys that were there, you know, Gab, you know, Steve from, you know, Spectrum, Ruben, you know, all of those guys, all these guys that I've always wanted to race with, always wanted to fly with, you know, and everybody was there, and I did well, you know, and I'm very proud of how well I did. I just wish my body could take more punishment at the time. Otherwise, you know, we don't know what would have happened because, you know, I am a good pilot. You know, I am a very decent. I can keep up with the best of them and run the distance sometimes.
Yeah, I want to make sure all your listeners do know that you are quite good. Like you were setting some really good solid lap times, man. Yeah, it's not just guy on a podcast talking hot air, you really can bring it when it needs to, man. So
Thanks.
it's a real shame you weren't in the final, but I know next time you will be, and you're not going to let something like a knee or a foot stand in the way.
Don't worry, David. I edit the podcast, so when we're ready, we're gonna make up a great story, and then we'll just cut it in, and then not tell Evan. It'll be perfect. I'm kidding, Elvin. I'm kidding. He knows I wouldn't do that to him. But here's the funny thing, like that event was so, I don't know, it took a toll on everybody. But I think the wing pilots actually got it lucky because they got in early. They cut out early and they can enjoy the rest of the day. The quad pilots, we had to be there all day. It kind of sucked. I won't lie.
Yeah, and go ahead. And I had to support my team too. I mean, it's that was the other thing. Not only that I had to compete, but then I had to be there for the team. To root them on, and when stuff went bad, I had to be there to, hey man, it's not as bad as it could be. It could be worse. You know what I mean? So we did do a lot of that, but hey man, it was an interesting opportunity, and we tried to do the best that we could and enjoy it the best that we can.
It was a very memorable experience.
It was. Now, sorry,
wing guys, as you said, we got lucky because we could finish, and then we would go on these little excursions. Where we would go and visit places like Senator Fong's plantation.
Right.
Where we're just flying in this my wing wasn't with me. It was at the other place. I was kind of bouncing between a couple of places, but I didn't have my wing with me. But all the wing guys were flying formation with each other. All these guys who an hour, 2 hours before were competing head to head are now all hanging out, having basically a wing FPV holiday in some beautiful spots on the island. It was really good fun.
There's only one thing I regret, and that is I did not keep the drawing that Alex gave me of the track, because it was very funny when I looked at it. I was like, Alex?
I have it.
Dang it, I want that. I want that.
I have it. I gotta go look
gave it
for
to
it,
you,
I have
and
it.
you kept it. And I was like, Alex, do you know what this looks like? And then I told him, and then he smiled and walked away. And I was like, oh, he's not going to change it. So I gave the paper to you,
baby. CMB.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw it.
For those of you who don't know, you're gonna have to listen to our previous podcast to figure that out. It was highly amusing to me and everybody else that saw that piece of paper.
I saw it when he was drawing. I was like, what the hell? Oh, hell no.
That was tricky because I designed a track, and I'd worked with Scott, the guy who ran the event. Mm-hmm. I designed a track and I'd done an animation for it with voiceover and all that. And apparently when they got there, it apparently wasn't going to work with the shape of the. I think it still would have worked. It would have been very intense track. It would have been
a tighter course. That's
all. Yeah. Anyway, so kind of on the spot, they had to come up with a new track, and so that was quite the challenge. And that was before I got there, because I came there kind of just in time for the racing. I wasn't able to get the time off my regular day job to get there early enough to help set up. So I turned up, and I had to learn the track as well. Okay, I need to know the corners.
All I did was memorize that track, homeboy. That's the only way I could fly it. I asked why. He was like, I had the wrong freaking camera lens. Why is going, how can you see? I memorized the track, damn it. That's all I can see. That's everybody was like, dude, I don't know how you doing that. I'm like, left, right, left, dude. That's all it was, man. I was flying just like that.
Shut your eyes and just fly. You got
I just was flying. Every time I was looking for certain parts of the track that I knew that I had to perform certain moves to get to the next point, right? So it was like that chicane. It was like whoop, 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 and then hard bank. You know what I mean? And then 180, then back. That 270 around the tree. That was like the focal point for me, because I knew I could catch. If I caught you guys as you were going to that turn, I could beat y'all out of that turn, because I was that thin wing. I had the Wyvern, so it was thin, and all I had to do is put it in that bank and nail the throttle and just pull back and hold on to it, and she would just barely suddenly she started wobbling just at the end, and then I would drop, and then whoop, I catch up back to you guys. But it was some fun racing, man. I tell you, it was the best wing racing, probably the best racing I've done in a long time. And it was definitely one. Hopefully I get a chance to do it again before I retire, because I am looking to do that. I just want to sit behind a desk, man. I don't want to do too much. These knees can't handle it.
That's why you want to get just a cruising airplane, like one that's not going to go balls to the wall. You want like a Radian or something where you can be up in the sky for about 3 hours, and just chill.
I have a Radian, so I have Radians and a couple of Bixlers and a floater, wing floaters. So there's stuff you just throw up in the air and you put a camera on it and you just cruise.
You just cruise.
I hear you.
Now, I got a question for you, just because you just said that. I don't know if the technology is good enough or it's even worth trying, but if you get a big 60-inch or 60-plus inch wings and you get some light solar power panels, is it worth it to extend the time of flight on a nice sunny day doing that? Or maybe, I don't know, give you power on your cameras just in case you actually drain your entire battery? Is that a thing?
Not really. I've been watching a guy on YouTube. He's been trying to build a solar plane, and the other day he flew for like 3 hours, and he's just kind of cruising. Found some thermals, but most of the time it was powered on and wasn't in thermals. So he's getting there. His goal is to have sustained flight from like 10 in the morning till early afternoon, and the big thing is that the solar panels are really delicate. And so they're really, really easy to break on a awkward landing. So he actually catches his plane, and he has this giant propeller, like super efficient, massive carbon propeller, and it's designed to be just as aerodynamic as possible to work with the solar panels that he's got embedded in his wing with his carbon fiber ribs and the clear surface. I can't remember. Is RC Test Flight? I think is.
RC Test Flight. Yeah. The kid, right?
Yeah. It's a really, really deep voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people are doing that. I guess if you want a cruiser, you probably could kind of keep following him and look into it, but
still not a thing yet, huh?
Not yet. You're not generating enough power from the solar just yet.
Yeah, not to sustain flight. To sustain gliding, yes, you can do that. There's a couple of guys that do cross country. We call it cross country glider flying. What they do is, they launch in one town or one city, and then they fly, 150 miles in one direction, and the first one there is the winner. Stuff like that. Those things you can do with solar power. You can extend the flight, because most of the flight is done on no power. You're gliding. Those I have done some cross country a little bit. 72 megahertz radio systems we use. We don't use spectrum, spread spectrum, none of that, because you can't get the range that you would get with 72 megahertz. But I've never done what you're talking about. I know that there's a couple of companies right now working on some long range planes that can basically clouds and use that as power. I've actually had my hands on one of them, and it's a hydrocell. What they do is they go aloft in the cloud, and they spend 1 minute flying in the cloud and collect enough moisture to fly another 8 miles.
Jesus.
So
that sounds pretty
cool. That's under power. So.
And how many thousands of dollars?
I said I had my hand on it. I didn't say I owned it.
That's kind of interesting.
I mean, there's a couple companies that are doing that, but I mean that's more commercial, military grade kind of stuff, or flying out in areas where, for hundreds of miles there's nobody, you or me, and it's just wilderness or whatever, going across plains or whatever, from huge farmland. A buddy of mine's got a place up in Montana that's got huge farmland, and they do some crazy flying up there, tracking stuff.
Pretty interesting. All right, let's start wrapping up here.
Sorry.
I'm going to now. It's some good conversation on wings today. So let me ask David about MultiGPIO because he just recently returned there. That's how we connected and really started talking about a lot of crazy stuff. So let me ask you how the wing race there was, because I don't know. I had a few takeaways. I want to hear what you thought of it first.
So I enjoyed the tracks. That was Alex Grieve. You guys know him as Ivy Crazy. He designed the track, and because his goal was to have a track that kept pilots low. So he had 5 gates. The first wing track that I've seen that has 5 gates in it.
Wow.
So that did make pilots stay a lot lower, and it made it very entertaining to watch. I was a bit disappointed there weren't too many wing pilots there. I think it was mainly because no one knew about it. I didn't really see much advertising for it being a wing race. I remember there was a lot of promotion for all the different classes in the multi-rotors, from the spec to the world track, and all this stuff was being promoted, and wings. Like, it always seemed like a little footnote at the end. There was never really given much mention. I know I talked to a few people, and they're like, "Oh, if I knew there weren't this many people, I would have brought my wing." And I'm like, "Ah, you should have brought your wing anyway."
Especially when it's keep
I also
going.
knew a bunch of wing guys who couldn't come because, well, they didn't come because they'd spent kind of all their vacation days or enough time away from the family at other flying events, whether it's Flying Circus or NAFPV or Florida, the CFL, or kind of all the other flying events that been around that they knew would be more of a wing event because they didn't think there would be much for wings. But it was awesome having our own track, which meant that the guys who were there got to fly a lot. Literally, if you wanted to fly, you could fly. We had enough pilots and enough spare channels so that you basically would pick a channel and you were kind of free to fly as often as you had batteries free, which I think is kind of unheard of at a flying event. So that was great for those guys. But yeah, I kind of wish there was more people there and a bit more interest. And as I expected, we were put down the far end of the field, so people were even driving past. There was no one really driving past him and go, "Oh, that's cool. Let's stop and check it out."
So,
what do you think? Why?
First thing I would say is that if you ever visit the AMA headquarters, you should always bring your biggest toys because they have massive amounts of land. There's nothing you cannot fly out there, okay? Just bring everything. If it can fit in your car or above your roof, definitely bring it.
I think it's part of the city limits kind of thing.
Now, the second thing I would say...
Don't come here unless you fly.
You're entirely correct. I don't think anybody really gave wings much of a promotional push because this was definitely more about the drones, unfortunately. But I will say, though, I was really impressed with the caliber of pilots. But before I get into the caliber of pilots, and we can talk about that in a second, I thought the track was like insanely hard. I think that if a newbie were to come in with a spec wing, I don't think he would have had a fun time on that track. That was the thing that kind of that I took away with it. I don't know if you agree with me on that.
Yeah, it wasn't designed as a beginner track at all. Yeah, I give you 100% there. It wasn't designed as a beginner track, and that was the goal. You're meant to have the best pilots in the world coming to compete. You don't want to have a big oval and do a NASCAR style track. And yes, the multiple gates meant that pilots had to stay low because what happens in some events is that pilots go very high and it's very hard to judge and say they went around a flag or in Hawaii there was one guy from Korea, I think it was, who was like 100 meters in the air, like 300 feet in the air, and there's no way you can say that he made it around to any flag.
Right. You're I don't know. You give
whether
up.
It's a spotter on the ground, a spotter watching the FPV, there's no clear way to know that the guy was actually following the track.
Right.
And so by having the lot of gates, it did mean that it was a lot tighter, and it was good because it actually added some drama to it. Because in the final, in fact, the guy who won it, he missed one of the gates early on and had to go back around and do it again. same
Oh,
way we do in mini quad races. It
right.
wasn't because it wasn't timed. It was first past the post. So he had to go back and do that gate again, and he had this fight back that was just epic as he came back through the ranks, passing everybody, which allowed him to take the victory on the final lap. Like 2 or 3 corners before the end, he took
Wow.
the lead and just held onto it. And so you get these moments like this, and that was awesome.
So, like, I did not realize that this was supposed to be like the world championship of wing racing. I thought it was just like another track in which, hey, if you want to fly wings, go over there and fly with these guys. But I'm glad you told me that, because then it makes sense on why the track design, looking at it from that perspective, is like, yeah, that's really hard. It's like, but if you want the best pilots there to see who's number one, then that makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
did not know that, actually.
Well, it wasn't really promoted as that. I think that's kind of what it was taken as by the people who were there.
Oh, okay.
That it was meant to be the top level intense track. But I think that the multiple gates was Chris Thomas's idea, I believe. You'd have to check with Alex on that, but I think it was Chris Thomas's idea to make it more palatable for spectators.
I got you.
It's a bit more easy to watch. It's terrible English. A bit more easy to watch. It's easy to watch if planes are lower.
Oh,
Mhm.
I totally agree with that, but I don't know, wings in general. Well, these are spec wings, so they're a little bit smaller. So yeah, I would agree with that. The other thing I would say is that, like, so when you watch like a pro at anything, if you watch the top of any sport, they should be able to wow you with their skills. And when you actually watch them, even if they were just doing shenanigan things, which since you guys were out there and there was a lot of free time, like the top pilots did wow you. I mean, like the things that they could do at the speeds that they can do was actually like, it was like a wow moment. It's like, yeah, like, and like even if you replay it back on video, which I watch most of it back really on video, it's like some of these guys were able to hit like soda cans off of carts going at 120. It's
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
really hard to do no matter what you fly, and being able to
Right.
see that, it's like, wow, okay, like I get it. It's like these guys are really good, and it's actually kind of fun to watch, even if they're just doing shenanigan things. So
I heard y'all was doing that. I was kind of pissed off I didn't make it.
Well, I think
That's
it was
your fault.
Alex and a guy called Gizmo, I think, came up with this game at NFPV a few years ago, which is the North American FPV event, the longest running FPV event in the world. They call it Kick the Can, where basically they put a beer can on top of an upturned garbage can, and you had to fly past it in whatever you had and knock it off.
dude,
And it's a staple at every NFPV, and there's carnage, there's victory, there's near misses,
carnage.
there's everything. It's a fun
Those
little game.
garbage-
Don't do it with a full beer can because you'll take a chunk out of your plane, though.
Right.
don't
Do
do
an
it.
empty beer can.
I will say this. This is the last takeaway I have. The planes that the pros build, they're tough. Okay, it's
Right.
like you think, oh, this can't be as tough as carbon fiber. That is not true. Okay, I've seen those things hit like aluminum bars, and they like, it's like, oh, okay, it'll still fly, and just a little glue. It's like those things are tough. They put enough
Hey.
laminate on there to where it's almost like carbon fiber.
Hey, I had a branch in mine in Hawaii. Remember that? I had a branch in mine.
Oh, yeah.
I left the hole for the branch and went back and flew.
What it's I don't know, in my brain, you guys probably don't have this. I think foam, I think weak, I think if I crash it, it blows up, right?
Right.
But like you can build these to where like you can crash them at like 40 miles an hour, and you can, some of them you can just literally pick back up, toss in the air, because I saw
Right.
that. And
Well,
it's like,
that's where good EPP comes in. That's where the different types of foam really come in. It's like if you're flying a carbon fiber frame compared to a fiberglass frame.
Right.
They're both black. They both kind of look the same, but you know that they're not quite the same. So a good EPP plane, like so the density that we use and density that kind of most of the other manufacturers use, is the kind of thing that once you spar it up with your carbon fiber spars to give it stiffness, you laminate on, which is the plastic coating you iron on the outside, which is like an exoskeleton for the plane. Combine that, because that's quite good in tension. The foam's good in compression. You get kind of the best of both worlds, and you get this stiff surfboard type of structure that's can take a beating.
I got one for you.
Go for it.
What do you prefer? Like, okay, so like I got a newbie, right? He's learning how to build wings. He's on his fourth wing and he's doing good. Okay. And he calls me up and he says, "Hey man, can I get some 5 mil lamb from you?" And I said, "Well, on that wing, I would use some 1.5 lamb and do it 2 or 3 times because you got some contours that 5 mil is going to fight against, right?" So, how would you? Is that how you would present that, or would you say go ahead and try the 5 lamb, or would you try to say use the smaller stuff and build up?
Probably the stronger stuff. It depends on the location you're trying to wrap. We all our wings come with 3 mil lamb. We find that's a good kind of middle ground between being super tough and being lightweight and easy to work with. We find that a good number. And if you need to, you just double it up. If you want to do like super strength, the leading edge, or a bit underneath the bottom, you want to have a bit more your flex control. You add a couple of strips down the bottom,
right,
of 3 mil.
Yeah. So takeaway there, folks, is I don't know. I think you guys actually need to kind of advertise it more. That if you use laminate properly, that these wings can be just as tough as quads, because I can tell from the outside looking in, because that's what I am, even though I'm kind of well versed in wing technology thanks to Elvin. I still think of them generally as weak. Okay, it's just in my brain. Okay, it's foam. Okay, I know what EPP looks like. I use EPP, but like you talk to me about 80 miles an hour, I still think of it as weak, even though I've literally seen it in person of it not being weak. You kind of need to reinforce that.
I've hit a car and done some pretty good damage to a car.
Yeah,
from a wing.
But you don't need to tell me. You need to tell prospective buyers that, because like
I'm just saying. Look, if you go out, if you want to buy a wing, I mean, if you do it right, it'll last you for at least 2 or 3 years. If you do it right.
And also, if you buy from one of the main guys, whether it's from us or whether it's from any other guys who are out there making it, we're all making good stuff. So whether it's like Alex or Ruben or all the other guys, there's a whole bunch of them out making them.
Don't buy from somebody that is still designing. There's a couple of people out there right now that are just they're learning and they're trying to sell while learning, and I really don't think they're going about it the right way, because you have to perfect your craft before you go out to the masses. Otherwise, you're wasting my time.
It does take a lot of time to build a wing.
Yeah,
like it's not difficult. It's just involved. It's just a lot of easy steps, as opposed to being very difficult.
Yeah, and me, I'm one of those guys. Like I order 3 different types of lamb. I order 1.5, 3 mil, and then 5 mil. And then I if I want a 10 mil layer, nose guard, then I run 2 pieces of 5 mil. But when I first lamb a plane, I always use 1.5 because it's easier to work around the contours of the plane with the thinner lamb. And then I build on that from that point on. Once I get it covered, then lamb sticks to lamb pretty easy. You know what I mean? Once you get stuff covered. But and then there's the other thing is there's different types of lamb. You got to watch out. You got to know what you want. There's high temp lamb, low temp lamb, and if you get the wrong temperature, say if you're dealing with an EPO or EPLOR kit, and you get high temp lamb, you're gonna melt the EPO and the EPLOR before you even get the lamb to stick. So you got to be careful. Don't just EPP is. There's a reason why most of the wings out there are made out of EPP. It's because it's durable, it's strong, and you can glue it together with CA.
You can glue it together anything. It takes nothing melts it.
Except
you
for
can
some
pa- you can-
serious heat.
Yeah, like hot glue can actually sometimes melt it if your hot glue gun's turned way up. You can paint it with anything. Like people ask us, what kind of spray paint do you use? We're like, what have you got? It'll take it all.
Stick.
It'll take it all.
The 99-cent cans, those if in your neighborhood they have 99-cent can paint, that paint will work.
I will say though, like a lot of people that I talk to gravitate towards the ready to fly stuff, which doesn't come with any laminate, right? And it's not the really great foam. So learn how to laminate, I guess, because it does. I've seen it firsthand. It does improve the durability of that wing like dramatically, and
it also improves the flight characteristics too. So it makes turns a plane that's very rough. Where you could, the surface is not smooth, and then it turns it into a smooth piece of glass, and it'll cut through the wind better. It'll turn faster. It'll go faster, so that's one of the bonuses of lambing.
Okay, now that we've bored everybody on this podcast, so let's. Yeah, they're all asleep now. It's like, why are they still talking about laminate?
Wake up.
David, so we're approaching the end of the year. Is there any more events that you'll be at commentating?
I don't know. I haven't got anything lined up yet, but we'll see. It's about to start getting very cold up here in the was it the winter above the white wall above the wall.
Winter is coming. Dun dun dun. Okay. So anything else that you want to talk about before we start wrapping up the show?
No, you guys are doing a great podcast. I've been following you guys for quite a while, so I want to give you guys a good shout out. Like, keep up the good work, guys. It's really good what you're doing.
Oh, we appreciate that. So if people want to talk to you about wings or want to get you to commentate on their events, what's a good place to reach you at?
Well, you can hit us up on Facebook. Just TBRC Wings on Facebook, or send us a message to the website, tbrcwings.com. Both ways are a great way of reaching both myself and Anthony. If you want to talk to me about commentating, you can message us through there, and I'll get back to you as well.
God, like the master of wing commentary will be getting back to you. See, look, now I'm gonna embarrass him. I'm good at that. I'm really good at that.
Yes, he is.
Okay, David, thank you so much for coming on. It's an hour and 40 minutes. We always run over every time. I say I'm gonna do an hour podcast, 40 minutes afterwards I'm like, oh, maybe I should start wrapping up, huh? It's like,
I think half an hour ago you said you were gonna wrap up, but we started talking about laminating, and it's such an exciting topic.
Dude, there's one thing that I know about wing pilots is that if they love their wings, they have like stacks of knowledge about how to laminate stuff. It's like a basic skill. It's like flight controller tuning for quads, right?
Yep.
It is what it is. Oh, one last thing. Like, if somebody buys a TBRC wing, do you guys have videos out on YouTube and whatnot to help build them up?
Yeah, we do. We have a detailed build video of the Reflex and of the TBRC 60. Haven't got one of the Apex out. We also have a very detailed build manual for all of our planes that has 3D rendered images, which I do up as well. I like that. So kind of steps you through every step of the way. And if people do get stuck, you just send us a message on either Facebook or the website, and we get back to you pretty quickly to help you through your build.
There you go. So, the first build's always the tough build, and, it's always nice to have video, and you get customer support. So if you're interested, definitely check them out. There's probably only I would say 4 wing manufacturers that me and Elvin would look at to actually get our first wing. So, I think we had the majority of them on our podcast. So.
That's it. So Sweet Wings, Right Wings, TBRC, and Johnny and them.
And Alex, Video Aerial Systems.
Yeah, and Alex too. Yeah, don't forget Alex. So we had 5. We had 5.
There we go.
Big 5.
Yeah. Go to the Big 5.
Big 5. Let's call them that. The Big 5. Hey,
you know
FPV Wing Mafia.
There we go. We need to get them all there and then have them argue about which wing is the best. It would be great. I'll just sit back and drink my water.
Everybody send me a kit, and I will review each one, and then I'll determine who's the best.
I don't believe you. You just keep all of them. You just keep all of them. All right.
We have the best hats. We have the best hats.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't think Alex has a hat. Or Ruben. I could be.
There's a picture of Alex in somebody else's hat.
I think Ruben has a hat.
Ruben
has a hat. Yeah.
I know at NAFPV 2 years ago, last year, Anthony and Ruben swapped hats for a photo. Kind of should be funny.
Hey, you guys are all buddies at the end of the day. I know this. I talked to Ruben, like, it's so funny, right? Because I know this is such a very tight-knit community because, like, I'll be talking to one of you guys about the wing, and you guys will recommend somebody else's wing, and I'm like, it's like, what's that about? It's like, we're talking about your stuff. You're sitting there talking about somebody else's stuff.
I mean, we all understand that, not every ship is meant for every person, and then some things some things you have the skills to fly, and some things you don't, and like the Wyvern. I wouldn't suggest the Wyvern be somebody's first plane. It's too fast, too thin. You're gonna have a horrible time. But there's other stuff out there that I suggest, like the Reflex, like the Finch, and a couple of other planes out there. Those are more suited for a newbie guy.
True enough. All right,
and I hate saying the newbie guy.
No, we're wrapping up because I keep on bringing up topics and it keeps going.
Damn it.
That's my fault.
Hey, look, you got 3 commentators on the microphone right now. We can go for another 3 hours.
Right. I know. It's terrible. That's why I'm cutting him off because he's going to keep going. No, I got to go to sleep. All right, folks. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. Definitely check out David. He's a great guy. He's also in a lot of the big events. So if you see him walking around, go talk to him. He's a blast. Go talk to Alex. He'll keep you there for about 4 hours too. So have fun, be merry, and we are done for the day.
Peace out.
Thanks, guys.